Hello everyone. Namaste, my dear friends, my dear aspirants. Welcome to the weekly Science and Technology Current Affairs series, Part 1. It is Part 1 covering updates from 15 to 22nd September 2025. In this series, you will get complete preparation support. Every update comes with MCQ based prelims question, details mains question, and a quick one liner recap for every revision, which is very important for UPSC, BPSC, state PCS, SSC, banking, SBI, IBPS, defense examination. Before we begin, remember this thought. Knowledge is not just power, it is preparation. Knowledge is not just power, it is preparation, and preparation is a bridge between your dream and your success. So let's start today's journey of learning and success with confidence. First news is about sarcoidosis. Sarcoidosis is an inflammatory disease, means it causes inflammation. Sarcoidosis is an inflammatory disease and it causes inflammation in different parts of your organ. So look at an image. So sarcoidosis affect multi-organ. So it is multi-system disease. In this disease, clumps of inflammation cell form in different types of organs. So it means it affects different types of organs and causing organ inflammation. So look at an image. It causes inflammation in your brain. That is a brain in cranial nerves and in meningeal brain and parenchyma involvement also. In your eyes, it affects your eyes also. Mostly it affects lungs, human lungs, but it affects multiple organs. So about in eyes, it cause in eyes, it causes uveitis, lacrimal gland enlargement, conjunctive involvements. It affects heart also. It causes a EV block, antithemia, and cardiomyopathy. It affects lungs, mostly affects lung also, and causes chronic dyspnea and bilateral perihilar lymphadenopathy. It affects the skin also, multiple erythematous macula, papilla, plaque of subcutaneous nodules. So different types of inflammation seen in skin also. It affects your liver also and causes in your LFT test, liver function test, there is a asymptomatic increase in LFT test and it shows fever, jaundice, weight loss, and fatigueness. So these are the news about the sarcoidosis. Sar, sarcoidosis. So it can happen when your body immune system overreacts. Your body immune system is starting overreacting. It responds to foreign substances such as a virus, bacteria, and chemicals. So it is the main cause. These are the cause of inflammation in different organs. So the your in this problem, the immune response causes cell to form granulomas. What it causes? Granulomas. Granulomas means a clump of inflamed tissue. The tissue got the tissue will get inflammation inside affected organs, whatever the organ is affected. Over time, this may lead to permanent scarring. So, areas of the body commonly affected by sarcoids includes all the many organs are affected: lymph nodes, mostly lungs, then eyes, skin, liver, your heart, spleen, brain. So, these are the sarcoids. Multi-organ system causes problem in inflammation. So sarcoidosis remain a complex inflammatory disease which is affecting multiple organs, not a single organ. So according to recent research, it marks its variable course and the critical role of early diagnosis. So there is a need of early diagnosis because it affects multiple organs. It causes inflammation and various problems. So this knowledge speech summarize the key facts and insight for you have to understand this. What is a sarcoidosis? So sarcoidosis is an immune disorder. What is a immune cell is not properly function. So it is a immune disorder. This is the reason it is a causes multiple organ dysfunctioning inflammation. So it is an immune disorder where cluster of inflammatory cells, and that cluster of inflammatory cells are called granulomas. So cluster of inflammatory cell called granules formed in any organs, many organs. So in this case, the sarcoidosis, the most commonly affected organs are lungs. The most common affected organs are lungs, most commonly affected. The exact cause is still not known. What are the main causes? Virus, bacteria, chemical, but the exact cause is still not known. It is unknown, but it involves genetic factors, immune overreactivity, and environmental triggers. So it may thought that it is because of any genetic factors or immune over your immune system become overreactive, and environmental reason also. So this cluster of inflammatory cell are called granulomas, which disturb normal functioning of organ, and it may lead to different types of complication. So what are the common symptoms? So there are the symptoms depend on the which the specific organ is involved. If it affects lung, so lungs, cough will come, breathlessness, and chest discomfort. If it affects skin, so it shows rashes and nodules. If eyes are affected, then it leads to redness and blurred vision. So some patients show no symptom, asymptomatic, and are diagnosed incidentally. It means it diagnosed incidentally because of the reason the patient feel fatigueness and weight loss are the main common sign. Fatigueness and weight loss. So these are the causes of sarcoid. The exact cause of sarcoidosis is still not known, is unknown. So, however, certain factors may increase trusted source. The risk developing is because of the age, and the age at 55 or older, because of any genetic reason, people with a family history of sarcoidosis have an increased risk. Occupational hazard also, working with mold, insecticides, or other chemical substances also cause inflammation that can raise risk of sarcoidosis, and it affects any organs. A reason are race and ethnicity also. These people of African people or Scandinavian people of African are called as Scandinavian because they descent say their descents show an increased risk of this disease. Now, females are more likely to be develop this problem, sarcoidosis. Certain medication also, that when the treatment patient are taking treatment of HIV, cancer, or autoimmune disease, can have this problem, sarcoidosis, uh, HIV, cancer, or autoimmune disease. In this case, the heart is affected, and mostly the people are thinking there is a heart block, but it is sarcoidosis. Sarcoidosis cause has more than one cause, but the exact cause is still not known. More common people which are affected are people of African people are mostly affected, and Northern European descent are also affected. Northern European descent are also affected. Women are mostly affected, and the people between age between 30 to 50 are affected. Sign and symptoms are there are sign night sweat, lightheadedness, shortness of breath, cough, weight loss, raised pink or purple skin, low grade fevers, red painful dry eyes, vision issues, enlarged painful chest, lymph nodes, enlarged spleen of liver, fatigueness. So people with some people with sarcoidosis have no symptoms. Organ, so these are the organ specific effects. It a multi-organ problem it shows. So first, if the lung, it affect lung, so lung, so problem that there is a respiratory problem, fibrosis, pulmonary fibrosis, which reduces lung capacity. So it affects lungs. In this case, there is a nodules formation take place in near the near the lungs. Nodules formation, lymph node formation take place in near the lungs. Now, in cardiac, when it affects a heart, it can cause irregular heartbeats or heart failure also. Neurological sarcoidosis also in brain, it causes seizure or nerve damage. Skin and eye are also causes prompt treatment to avoid lasting damage. So diagnosis combine clinical evidence. In this case, evaluation, imaging, and biopsy combines. We have to do this all the process: clinical evaluation and then imaging and biopsy, chest X-ray for the case of when heart is lung is affected, CT scan, which detect granulomas in the lungs. Biopsy confirms the non-cascading granulomas, which distinguish sarcoidosis from other diseases. Blood test and LFT also, liver function test also monitor disease activity and guide therapy. So treatment approach is mild cases, often no medication is required, but regular monitoring is required. Moderate cases, corticosteroid is given to reduce inflammation. For in this case, immunosuppressant medicine is also given. Immunosuppressant medicine, because in this problem, the your immune system become overreact. So doctor will prescribe immunosuppressant like methotrexate. Immunosuppressant like methotrexate help steroid resistant patients. New biological therapies target serve as a refractive sarcoidosis. So treatment aim to control symptom and prevent organ damage, that is specific organ damage. Diagnosis vary rapidly, treatment varies widely. Many patients improve spontaneously or maintain a stable disease after the treatment, and some develop chronic symptoms of premature organ damage. So these are about the long-term outlook. Early diagnosis and treatment improve outcomes, and continuous follow-up is essential to detect complication of this problem early and manage disease progression. Pregnant women also get sarcoidosis. In this case, the risk of fetal growth restriction and risk venous thromboembolism and then risk preeclampsia. So child growth is affected. One-liner recap is sarcoidosis is a multi-system inflammatory disease which is characterized by the formation of non-cascadic granulosas, most commonly affecting lungs, lymph nodes, skin, and eyes. Prelims based question MCQ is given. Consider the following statement regarding sarcoidosis. So you have to just what is go through it. It is primarily a bacterial infection. It is wrong. It is characterized by non-cascadic granulocyte. It is true, and lungs and lymph nodes are mostly commonly affected organs. Reason, because it affects immune system. Immune system become overreactive. So lymph nodes are commonly affected and lungs. Sarcoidosis is the most commonly associated with which of the following system? It is most commonly associated with respiratory system. Now, main question is given. Sarcoidosis is often called the great mimic in clinical medicine. Explained by discuss its pathogenesis, organ commonly affected, and challenges in diagnosis and management. Next news is about the Gara-Nam-Baseousness. Gara-Nam-Baseousness. Graham baseness is a newly discovered freshwater fish. It is a freshwater fish species. Gara, Nam, Base, Baseousness. So it is a freshwater, newly discovered freshwater species which is belonging to the genus. Genus name is a Gara. So it is found in the Nambasi stream, Chindwin River, which is near Chindwin River Basin in Manipur, India. So Gara nemesis is a discovery in a new freshwater fish species in Manipur marks addition to the region. It marks that Manipur is full of rich biodiversity. It is named as a Gara nemesis. This species was found in the Tarat Block Rivers, a tributary of the Chindwani River near Nambasi Valley in Kamjong district. So it was found in the Tarat Block River, which is a tributary of the Chindwin River, which is near which valley? The name is a Nambasi Valley in Kamjong district in Manipur. The research was led by Dr. Wongdon Sangin-Gam from Dhana Manjari University, Imphal. This finding improve understanding to know about more about the freshwater ecosystem in Northeast India and neighboring Myanmar. Discovery and habitat. Gara-Nambesis was found in fast-flowing shallow river section called reefers. This area had gravel beds covered with algae and a mixed substrate of cobblers, boulders, sand, fine slits, and core sediments. So these are the reason of finding of this Gara-Nambesis in the fast-flowing shallow river section called, and that shallow river section is called reefers. So habitats support different types of aquatic life due to there is a presence of large amount of oxygen and clean water condition. Water is a clean. So Taratok River lies close to the which is lie close to the Indo-Myanmar border, denoting trans-boundary, which is denoting trans-boundary biodiversity. About the physical characteristic of Gara-Nambesis, this is a freshwater fish. It has a distinctive special type of quadrate-shaped proboscis, which it possesses 7 to 8 acanthoid tubercles on a anterolateral margin and black spots on the opercles. Bony plate covering the gills, dorsal fleece at 8 to 11 scales, 6 black strips extend to the hypioral plate at the tail base. Adult measure 90 to 140 millimeters. Locally, it is called Nutungu. Locally, it is called, this fish is known as a Notungu. Taxonomy and classification. Gara-Nambesis belong to the which family? The family name is a Lebionine family. Lebionine family, which is a group known for bottom dwelling fish. Bottom dwelling fish adapted to fast current. It is a bottom present in the bottom of the river, and it is adapted to fast current of water. It is a part of proboscis species group with the genus name is a Gara. It is defined by the presence of lesser bony projection on the snout, and this newly discovered species add to 60 non-Gara species in the Northeast Indian river system. Significance it in the northeast region, including river system like Chindwin, Brahmaputra, Barak, and Kaladan. It hosts a rich variety of Gara fish species. So 32 species belong to the proboscis group. The Chindwani River system along has 8 Gara species, including the recently identified Gara chingianensis. Chindwani River system alone has how many Gara species? 8 Gara species, including recently identified recently identified species is Gara chingianensis. This diversity reflects the complex ecological needs and evolutionary process in the area. There are some conservation implications. This discovery put stress on the importance of continued ichthyological survey in Northeast India to survey about the fishes in Northeast India. It marks the need for conserving freshwater habitats which are vulnerable to pollution and habitat alteration. Now, previous discovery by the research team, Dr. Dr. Bangam Saningam's team previously identified Pathia poensis in 2018. In 2018, from the river name is a Cholu River, Ukhrul district. Ukhrul district. This indicates ongoing effort is going on to document, to know about the freshwater fish diversity in Manipur. So research contributes to global knowledge of freshwater biodiversity hotspots. Prelims MCQ based question is the following statement about Gara-Nambesis. It is a freshwater fish species discovered in India. It belongs to Cuprinidae family. It is endemic to Western Ghat. It is a wrong one, and first and second is correct. Now, Gara-Nambesis recently news is associated with which of the following? It is associated with freshwater fish. So, main question is given, recently new fish species such as the Gara-Nambesis have been discovered in northeast region of India. Discuss the significance of such discovery for biodiversity conservation, ecological balance, and sustainable livelihoods. Third news is about the India's first bamboo plant, ethanol plant. India's first bamboo plant, ethanol plants. So it is India's first biorefinery using. It is a first in India's first refinery, which is using bamboo as a raw material to produce ethanol. To produce ethanol. It is a 2G bioethanol. It has been inaugurated in Golaghat district, Assam. It has been inaugurated in Assam. It is inaugurated in Assam. Project name is Assam Bioethanol Private Limited, ABEPL. Assam Bioethanol Private Limited, ABEPL, which is a joint venture between Numaligarh Refinery Limited, NRL, Numaligarh Refinery Limited. It is a project name is Assam Bioethanol Private Limited, which is a joint venture between Numaligarh Refinery Limited and Finnish Farms Forum and Kimol Police Oli. So it is said to be, this project is said to be zero waste facility. It means all parts of bamboo. Very important point. It's all part of bamboo is used, multiply by products. So India's first bamboo based ethanol plants. India recently inaugurated its first bamboo based ethanol plant in where in Golgat, Assam, which is a milestone marks boost to the country's green energy ambition and industrial growth. So this plant will source bamboo from Assam and northeastern states, which help in benefiting farmers and it also benefits tribal communities. So India recently inaugurated its first bamboo plants, and that bamboo plant is bioethanol plant in Golgat, Assam. So these milestone boost to the country's green energy ambition and industrial growth. And in this, the plant will source bamboo from Assam and northeastern states, which help in benefiting farmer and tribal communities. Alongside bamboo plants, a polypropylene plant foundation was laid to strengthen regional manufacturing. Alongside this, a polypropylene polypropylene plant foundation was also laid to strengthen regional manufacturing. So these development is reflecting about India's shift towards renewable energy and self-dependence. India's green energy ambition and industrial growth. About bioethanol is a renewable high octane biofuel produced from where? It is a bioethanol is a renewable high octane biofuel. It is bioethanol is obtained from biomass such as bamboo, sugarcane, and grains. Bamboo, sugarcane, and grains. Bioethanol is high octane biofuel which is produced from biomass and biomass of bamboo, sugarcane, and grains. So bamboo offer a sustainable raw material due to its fast bamboo growth is very fast and it is available. Its availability is wide more in northeastern state. The new plant will produce about 5 lakh tons of bamboo annually. This development supports India's goal to reduce dependence on fossil fuels like coal, petroleum, and natural gas. So, this goal, India's goal to reduce dependence on fossil fuels and promote cleaner green energy resources. So policy changes supporting bamboo use. There are some policy changes which are required to support bamboo use. Bamboo was earlier classified as a tree under the Indian Forest Act 1927. Bamboo was earlier classified as a tree and the act is the Indian Forest Act 1927, restricting its harvest, preventing its harvest. Recent amendment have removed this classification, lifting the ban on cutting bamboo. Means restricting its harvesting means restricting it cutting according to the Indian Forest Act 1927. So recent amendment have removed this classification, this harvesting restriction, and allowing the ban, lifting the ban on cutting bamboo. Lifting the ban on cutting bamboo. So this policy shift empowers help local farmers and forest communities to cultivate and sell bamboo legally. They will cultivate and sell bamboo legally. So it aligns with government vision to promote rural livelihoods and sustainable resource use. There are many economical and social impact. It is expected to inject rupees 200 crore into the Assam rural economy. Bamboo ethanol plant is expected to provides or inject rupees 200 crore in Assam's rural economy. It benefits Assam rural economies. It creates new income source for farmers and tribal groups which are involved in bamboo cultivation. So this project also supports Make in Assam, Make in India initiative by supporting local manufacturing and industrial growth. So the the polypropylene plant will further expand industrial opportunities by producing essential plastic raw materials. It is a very important point. The plant is a polypropylene plants which help in producing essential plastic raw materials. Bioethanol production process involve fermentation of sugar. We have to do the fermentation of sugar. The process involved which are derived from biomass. Our plant is given, the plant is a bamboo plant and the plant is sugarcane in grains. So in this process that the fermentation of sugar take place from biomass. The process includes pre-treatment of raw material to release fermentable sugar. Then fermentation take place by microbes. Then distillation take place, dehydration take place to obtain fuel grade ethanol. This ethanol can be then blended with petrol to or used in modified and it is used in modified engines. Bamboo cellulose content makes it a viable feedstock for this biofuel because of the presence of cellulose content in bamboos, which help it to suitable for food feed stock for this biofuel. About India's renewable energy progress, India has rapidly improving in renewable energy over the past decade. India now ranks among the top 5 countries in solar power generation. India has become top 5 countries in solar power generation. Bamboo ethanol plants exemplifies diversification into alternative fuels beyond solar and wind. So it's a very important point. With the help of bamboo ethanol plant, it intensifies diversification into alternative fuels beyond solar and wind energy. So this aligns with national goal for energy security, environmental sustainability, and rural development. So its parameter and details are given. Just pause the video and read everything. So location Golga district, Assam, Numaligarh refinery area investment is about 4,000 to 5,000 crore. And then annual bamboo requirements 5 lakh tons from bamboo from Assam, Arunachal Pradesh, and Northeast states. Product capacity ethanol is dollar approximately 48,900 metric tons per annum. And product capacity by product is if phosphorus, acetic acid, food grade, CO2, etc. About power plant internal consumption, it has capacity with approximately 25 megawatt, which is a portion for internal use, access possibly to refinery or grid as per reports. Economic impact, so it is expected to boost approximately 200 crore annually to rural economy, benefits to thousands of farmers, tribal communities in East India. Prelims question is given. India's first bamboo ethanol plant was recently inaugurated in which state? You have know about that answer, Assam. Which of the following area by product of India's first bamboo ethanol plant, bamboo-based ethanol plant, and which is the bamboo base what we are using acetic acid for cooler carbonate methane gas. And then select the correct answer. This one is select the correct answer using the code below. So in this case we are using acetic acid for cooler carbon dioxide. Methane gas is not used. Methane gas is used in the case of slurry. Okay, so these are the 3 point is correct. Now, prelims MCQ based question, if you just consider the following statement about India's ethanol blending program. So, India aims to achieve 20% blending ethanol with petrol by 2025-26. Then, ethanol for blending can be produced from sugarcane and food grains. India's first bamboo ethanol plant supports the EBP by providing 2G bioethanol. So, these all are correct answer. Now, next question is the national policy in biofuels according to 2018 classify biofuel into categories. Which of the correct matches the categories? So biofuels derived from food crops like sugarcane, maize, rice, etc., derived from non-food lignocellulosic biomass like bamboo crop residue, derived from algae, and is derived from genetically engineered solar powered biofuel. So answer is all are correct. Again, which are the following advantages of bamboo-based 2G ethanol plants in India? So it advance food versus fuel conflicts, correct, enhances rural livelihoods, especially in Northeast India. It is also correct. It helps reduce crude oil imports. It is also correct. Completely eliminates greenhouse emission. It's a wrong one. Now, this main question is discuss India's first bamboo-based ethanol plant in Assam reflects the goal of national policy and biofuels 2018, evaluates its potential role in meeting the E20 blending target and promotes sustainable rural livelihoods. Main question is again, next one is given examine the challenges in ensuring a sustainable supply chain for bamboo-based ethanol, suggest measure to balance ecological concern with rural livelihood promotion. One-liner recap: India's first bamboo-based ethanol plant at Numaligarh, Assam. Numaligarh, Assam produces approximately 49,000 tons of ethanol annually using 5 lakh tons of approximately 5 lakh tons of bamboo, help in boosting rural economy and supporting India's E20 ethanol blending target. Next news is Supreme Court issue uniform DNA evidence guidelines. It is also very important news. Supreme Court lays down guidelines on DNA evidence collection and preservation. So Supreme Court of India recently issued comprehensive guidelines to ensure the integrity of DNA, security of Indian DNA samples, in criminal integrity of DNA, privacy of DNA samples in criminal investigation. It aims to standardize procedures across all states to prevent contamination of criminal investigation and delays in forensic analysis. So it aims to standardize across all states to prevent contamination of DNA sample in criminal investigation and delays in forensic analysis. It helps to promote the guidelines were prompted. The guidelines were prompted by a case involving serious crimes where lapses in sample handling compromised the investigation. The guidelines were given by a case, any criminal case which involved serious crimes where lapses in sample handling compromise the investigation. If there is a delay in any sample handling, it compromises the investigation process in criminal cases. There are need for uniform DNA sample procedure during to maintain the integrity of DNA samples in criminal investigation. The court found delays. According to the Supreme Court, the court found delays and unexplained gaps in sending vaginal swab samples to forensic laboratories in the case of rape cases like that. The chain of custody was not maintained, raising the risk of contamination. Although states manage police and public order, the Supreme Court intervened to create uniform protocols for DNA evidence handling across India. So all those states manage different, all police, public order also, but Supreme Court given order to create uniform protocols to follow uniform rules for DNA evidence handling across India. What are the key guidelines given by the Supreme Court? There are 4 main directives which are given by the Supreme Courts. First, DNA sample collection must be carefully documented, including details such as FIR number, status, etc., statutes, etc., should be maintained. DNA sample collection must be clearly documented, including details such as FIR number, statutes involved, a signature of medical personnel, investigation officer, witness. Second, the investigating officer must transport sample to the police station or concerned hospital, and ensure delivery to the forensic lab within how many hours? 48 hours. Any delay must be recorded with reason. What are the reason of delay? Third, once a stored sample cannot be opened or altered without court permission. Fourth, a chain of custody register must be maintained from collection to trial conclusion and append to court records. So there are judicial observation. The court has emphasized that DNA profile are reliable only if proper procedures are followed both in the laboratory and during collection and transport. So proper process must be maintained both in laboratory and during collection and transport of DNA sample. Past ruling have rejected DNA evidence due to contamination risk or improper storage. Courts have also noted that DNA evidence is opinion evidence, important opinion evidence under the Indian Evidence Act. Under the Indian Evidence Act, and its probative value depends on scientific and procedural rigors. About the DNA evidence in criminal cases, DNA carries genetic information. DNA can be taken from blood, from saliva, from hair, and other any biological materials. So matching DNA profiles with the help of DNA fingerprinting methods like that. So matching DNA profiles link suspects to crime. It links matching DNA suspects to crime scenes and but are not conclusive proof allowed. But this matching DNA are not concluding, not giving any conclusive proof allowed. The Supreme Court has clarified that DNA evidence must be scientifically and legally established to the credible in it must be credible in court. Now, role of investigating agency in forensic is about the role of investigating agency and forensic experts. Investigating officer must ensure DNA sample are collected without contamination and sent promptly to forensic labs. Forensic expert must maintain strict quality control during analysis. Both parties share responsibility for preserving the integrity and reliability of DNA evidence throughout the judicial process. Prelims question is the Supreme Court recent uniform DNA guidelines required that DNA sample must reach a forensic laboratory within how many hours of collection? Is it 48 hours? Which of the following is mandated by Supreme Court under the new DNA evidence guidelines? It is maintaining it's about the 1, 2, 3 is given here. So maintain a chain of custody registered from collection to trial collection, and then collect document must include signature of medical personnel, investigating officer, and independent witness. Second one is wrong. Now, the Supreme Court's guidelines from lapses found in which of the following case? There is a lapses and gap found in which of the following cases? So, the case given is the Devakar Katavali versus State of Tamil Nadu through precedents like Manoj, Rahul were also noted for procedural lapses. It is a case which is seen few days ago. Now, mains question is given, explain the key features of the Supreme Court's uniform guidelines on DNA evidence, critically examine the challenges likely to confront courts, police, forensic agency in the implementing these guidelines. The value of next question is the value of DNA evidence in criminal trials is only as good as the chain of custody procedural safeguards around it. So, in light of the Supreme Court's new DNA evidence guidelines, analyze the statement. Next question is also given. So, DNA guidelines integrate with DNA technology use and application regulation act 2019 and what further legal or institutional reforms are needed to strengthen forensic justice in India. So one liner recap is the Supreme Court of India is in Kantaveli, Devakar versus State of Tamil Nadu laid down binding uniform procedures for collection, preservation, transport and chain of custody of DNA evidence to safeguard its integrity in criminal trials. Next news is India's Urban Sustainability Challenge and SDG 11 progress. India's sustainabilities and communities 11 by 2030, India will have 7 megacities with population over 10 million. 31% live in urban areas. 17% of urban population lives in slums. 13% of urban households don't have sanitary toilet. These are the conclusion. And then 62 million tons per annum waste generated in cities, 62 million waste generated in cities, 1.2 million pollution related death in 2017. So more than globally make cities sustainable development goals 11 sustainable development progress, more than half of humanities live in cities today. More of half of the humanities live in cities today. So and by 2036 out of 10 people will live in cities. It is an important conclusion. So India's urban sustainability challenge and sustainable development 11 progress. So India's ranking is SDG reports, SDR report, Sustainable Development Report 2025, improved to 99th amongst 167 countries, 99 among 167 countries. So yet urban sustainability under Sustainable Development Goal 11 remains a major challenge. SDG Sustainable Development Goal 11 aims for cities that are inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. That is the 11th goal. So India's progress on key urban indicators has been slow or negative. About the India, this carbon on key urban indicators, the growth has been slow or negative. This marks persistent issue in urban living condition, infrastructure, and governance. Now, India's performance on Sustainable Development 11 indicators. Sustainable Development 11 covers four main urban indicators. Development Goal 11 covers four main urban indicators. Slum population proportion, PM 2. Particulate matter 2.5 pollution levels, access to improved piped water, and public transport availability. So these are the four indicators. India's score for slum population and air population have stagnated. Means it's not improving. It's slum population and air population. India's score is stagnated. It's not improving. It's in the same place. Access to pipe water, it's also decreased in 2025. Only about 65% of urban household have improved pipe water in 2022. About India, water supply is irregular in India and often water supply is of poor quality. For example, Mumbai average water supply lasts just over 5 hours daily. Mumbai's average water supply lasts just over 5 hours daily. Many urban household treats water before use, indicating contamination risk. India's progress on sustainable development goals. So India is on target to meet the sustainable goal indicator for neonatal and under 5 mortality. Neonatal and under 5 death, both indicators have substantially improved in the last 5 years. So neonatal and under 5 death rate is now it's decreasing, and it shows a sustainable improvement in the last 5 years. So because of the full vaccination, improved sanitation, electricity access to banking, adolescent pregnancy is eliminated. Between the years 2016 to 21, adolescent pregnancy is eliminated. Then multidimensional poverty is the stage is adapted. Means India multidimensional help in reducing multidimensional poverty by improving the condition between the years 2016 and 21. And now next, India's progress on women's well-being and gender equality. India has made progress in increasing mobile phone access with 93% of household having access to mobile phone. 93% of have access to mobile phones. However, 56% of women report owning a have a own mobile phone. So Sustainable Development Goal 1, no poverty. So 21.92% live below the poverty line. 28.7% of household in India have at least one number covered under health insurance or health scheme. Now 85.26% of people who demanded employment under Nrega were provided the employment in rural India. 36.4 eligible beneficiaries in received maternity benefits. 4.2% households in rural and urban India live in Kacha houses. So these are about the sustainable development. One, no poverty, 21.92%. Live below the poverty line, 28.7% households in India have at least one member covered under health insurance or health scheme. 85.26% of people who demanded employment under Mangnera scheme. 36.4% eligible beneficiary receive maternity benefits. 4.2% household in rural and urban India live in kacha houses. They are living in kacha houses. Living condition in urban slum. Slum faces the worst urban condition with poor housing and services. Nearly half of slum household live in inadequate non-pakka homes. Mumbai slum receive only 45 liters per capita per day compared to the norm of 135 liters, rule of 135 liters. Slum residents pay up to 30 times more for water from tankers. They are paying more 30 times more for water from tankers. They are getting water from tankers, paying more 30 times more. Informal tenure or overcrowding add to vulnerabilities of urban slums. About the environmental and disaster vulnerabilities, so urban poor face high exposure to pollution and climate risk. Poor infrastructure and lack of amenities are there. Loss of income and health issue hit the urban poor hardest. So these are the environmental and disaster vulnerabilities in urban poor. Now, urban governance and financial constraint. What are the financial constraint and urban governance? Urban development is a state subject with limited city autonomy. State control urban policy and funds. Despite increased budget, service deficits persist. Cities lack revenue powers and struggle financially. Over half of municipal corporation fail to cover half of their expenses from own revenues. It is a very important point. Over half of municipal corporation fail to cover half of their expenses from own revenues. Smaller cities face different types of financial challenges and cannot attract private investment or access capital markets. About urban development in programs and inclusivity, major urban scheme NURM Smart City Mission prioritize larger cities and commercial areas. Water sanitation and health projects form less than 20% of completed smart city projects. Housing affordable remain a key issue for low income groups. So Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana you offers subsidize, but it also excludes very due to credit worthiness criteria. So recent efforts, Pradhan Mantri U 2.0 include credit risk guarantees to improve inclusiveness. There are participation also 74 constitutional amendment mandates ward committee for local participation. So however, most city lack active or regular committees. It is also very disappointing. The limits community input in city planning, and this limit community input in city planning. Smart city initiative often reflect elite interest or online engagement. So these are the participation. Now policy recommendation, policy investment money must increase. It must increase to reduce urban service gap. Cities should gain financial autonomy and accountability. Local plan must be responsive and inclusive. So people-centric approach can fairer and more equal urban life. Recent findings by National Family Health Survey is a multidimensional poverty decline 4.8 at a compound annual average rate of 4.8% per year in 2005 and 2011. Multidimensional poverty decline according to the National Family Health Service, and more than double that pace at 10.3% a year during 2011-2021. Decline reduction in child death rate also, and then average decline in overall indicators. So average equally weighted decline for 9 indicators was 1.9% per annum in 2005 and 2011, and a rate of 16.6% per annum, more than 8 times higher in 2011 and 2021. About the consumption equality decline, every single household survey or analysis has shown that there is a consumption equality decline decline during 2011-2021. This is consistent with the above finding of highly inclusive growth during 2011-2021. Preliminary question is MCQ based. Which of the following is not included under the target of sustainable development 11? So in this case, it's not associated with the road. Another one is the correct one. Now, India's smart city mission primarily aims at smart cities, urban renewable and retrofitting of existing cities. Which India city recently topped at Ease of Living Index 2024? So this answer I have already explained. Just to watch my previous video, then you will get the answer. Ease of Living Index 2024, which India city recently topped? Mains question is given. Kindly pause the video and practice the answer. India's urban sustainability challenge and sustainable 11 progress challenges are given. Sustainable development 11 target initiatives are given, and smart city mission Amrut and PMA. So Amrut is a Atal mission for rejuvenation and urban transportation. PMA is a PMA is a Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. So these focus on civic amenities, and Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana on housing. So one-liner recap is a sustainable development 11 aims to make cities inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. Challenges are there, progress is needed, and there are gap for better waste management, need for better waste management, affordable housing, and public transport solution. Next news is AI-based monsoon forecasting. AI-based artificial intelligence-based monsoon forecasting. Artificial intelligence-driven monsoon forecast, which help in guiding millions of farmers for their crop planning. So it is a very beneficial for farmers because they are getting about the crop planning with the help of artificial intelligence. So how artificial intelligence is helping 38 million farmers with advanced weather prediction. So this two-third puzzle dry spell about the weather prediction, AI forecast captured the pause, everything is according to this. Now, based on the artificial intelligence based monsoon forecasting. So the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmer Welfare, MOAFW, the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmer Welfare has pioneered the use of artificial intelligence, has taken the benefit of artificial intelligence in agriculture also. It provide early and accurate monsoon forecast which help farmers across India. Recently, 3.8 crore farmers in 13 states. Recently, 3.8 crore farmers in 13 states received AI-based monsoon prediction with the help of SMS through the M-Kisan platform. Platform is a M-Kisan platform. So this advanced technology help the farmers, warn the farmers up to 4 weeks before rains. It warn the farmers 4 weeks before, 4 to up to 4 weeks before rains, help farmers make better decision about crop selection, sowing time, and resource management. So this initiative marks a global first in targeted artificial intelligence help in weather forecasting, which aim directly at improving agricultural outcomes. So artificial intelligence revolution in weather forecasting. Since 2022, artificial intelligence has transformed weather prediction by improving accuracy and customizing forecast for specific user needs. So advanced model can now forecast complex phenomena such as Indian monsoon weeks ahead. The ministry forecast combined Google Neural, GCM, ECMWF's artificial intelligence forecasting system. So ministry forecast combined Google Neural, GCM, and ECMWF artificial intelligence forecasting system. Kindly remember this. Now, so this model outperformed traditional forecast in helping predicting local monsoon onset, helping to get timely and reliable information for farmers. So monsoon forecast dissemination to farmers, information to farmers. AFW sent weekly updates to farmers during 2025 monsoon season, including alerts about 20-day mid-season pause in rain progression. Should not be done in rain progression, heavy rain. This early and continuous communication allowed farmers to adapt their plans, to change their plans, and reduce different types of monsoon risk. So this approach helped farmers' needs and improve their capacity to respond to changing weather patterns. This also shows impact on kharif farming and livelihoods. Crores of Indian farmers depend on kharif crop cycle during monsoon season, which depend heavily on timely monsoon season. So early artificial intelligence forecast give them critical lead time to decide what to plant and when to plant. So this reduces copper failure risk and improves farmer income stability. So with increasing climate variability, such tools are important for agriculture resilience. So, future prospects, the ministry plans to expand and improve more artificial intelligence forecasting programs. The success of 2025 monsoon forecast dissemination set a precedent for integrating artificial intelligence into agricultural policy. Now, one liner recap is artificial intelligence based monsoon forecasting uses machine learning and big data to provide accurate, timely prediction, improving agriculture, disaster preparedness, and water management. Mains question, introduction, significance, challenges, way forwards. Question is given. Discuss the potential of artificial intelligence in improving monsoon forecast in India. What are the advantages and limitations? Prelims based question, definition, key features, and implementing agency in India is in Indian Meteorological Department, collaborating with research initiative and private tech firms. Advantages and sample prelim question is given. Which of the following statement about AI based monsoon forecast is correct? So next news is reintroduction of brown trout revive Kashmir fisheries. Reintroduction means there was introduction, now there is again there is a reintroduction of brown trout revives in Kashmir fisheries. So the Kashmir fisheries department is reintroducing the brown trout into the valleys called water stream to restore the species population and boost angling tourism. So this project announced in September 2025, which followed a century-long decline of the brown trout, which were the first introduction to the region in 1900 during the British Raj. It was the first introduced in 1900 during the British Raj, but it's slowly, gradually shows numbers are decreasing since after then. Now, reintroduction of brown trout revives Kashmir fisheries. The Kashmir Fishery Department is set to reintroduce the brown trout into the where the valley is called water stream after more than a century. So it aims to restore the trout population and boost angling tourism. Angling tourism is a form of tourism which is involved in recreational fishing. This project scheduled for October. It follows extensive preparedness and scientific study to ensure the fish survival and ecological balance. So about the brown trout was first successfully introduced in Kashmir by the British in 1900. And then Frank J. Mitchell, an English carpet factory owner who was an English carpet factory owner, helped this after an earlier failed attempt in 1899. Facilitated this after an earlier failed attempt in 1899. So the fish thrived in grow in streams like Panazama, Panjagam, and Leader, becoming a popular game fish. It becoming a popular game fish. The fish growed in streams like Panjagam and Leaders. So fisheries department created exclusive fishing zones, and that fishing zones are called bits. That fishing zones are called to regulate and anglings. Angling tourism is a form of nature tourism which focus on recreational fishing, where people travel from their home environment to fish, often utilizing services provided by fishing tourism companies. There is a decrease in number shown of this brown trout over time. So unregulated fishing led to a decrease in the number of brown trout population. The fish natural habitat suffered from ecological disturbance, including illegal river mining. In recent few years, the fisheries department shifted focus to brown trout farming for food. So, however, the need to revive wild brown trout, need to revive to take care of the wild brown trout for support also for sport and tourism has gained priority in gaming, popular game fish. So there are some scientific challenges to reinvesting brown trout. So brown trout require cold environment, and the environment is full of oxygen, well oxygenated water, and do not grow in artificial environment. So unlike rainbow trouts, they reject artificial feed. They also reject artificial feed. The fisheries team studied their feeding habits and created a special feed from crustacean mixed with cod liver oil. So these also replicated dark condition. They also replicated copy dark condition in the hatchery to encourage their feeding, as brown trout feed mostly in it feed mostly in low light. Current reintroduction efforts, the department import 3 lakh pure brown trout's egg from where? Import from Denmark under central state scheme promoting sustainable agriculture and fisheries. So they were hatched at the Sanmar hatchery in Kulgam. So the fries have now grown to a size suitable for release into stream and lakes, including the Veso River, and the next one lake name is the Konsarnang Lake. About the ecological consideration, the release is planned for October-November, the breeding season when brown trout are less aggressive and less cannibalistic. So this timing, this increase survival chances by reducing predation among trout. So overemphasis it emphasizes the importance of habitat preservation to ensure success, denoting threats from illegal mining and environmental degradation. So this project is important project in Kashmir aquatic biodiversity conservation and sustainable tourism development. Tourism development. So brown trout scientific name that is Salmotruta. Salmotruta. Brown nom size is Salmotruta. So it's introduced in Kashmir from Europe in the early 20th century by British officer. In reintroduction initiative, ecological rules, economic important institution involved. So brown trout recently news was first introduced in India from Europe. First introduced in India from Europe. So one liner recap is reintroduction of brown trout, Salmotruta in Kashmir has revived fisheries, strengthened local livelihoods, and boosted ecotourism while raising concern about BT fish conservation. So a brown trout is a Salmotruta, which is a cold water fish species originally introduced in Kashmir from Europe in the early 20th century by British officer. Mains question is given, so you have to write introduction, significance, challenges, way forward. Next news is decentralized finance, DeFi risk and regulation amid growing global adoption. DeFi, decentralized finance, is rapidly increasing, improving, expanding globally, leveraging blockchain, using blockchain and smart contracts to offer financial services without any traditional intermediaries like bank. So there is no traditional intermediaries like banks. However, this growth also brings significant risk and regulatory challenges. There are many risks and vulnerabilities. So the absence of traditional financial institutions and regulators make decentralized finance DeFi prone to many criminal issues. So there are smart contracts are susceptible to different types of hacking. So decentralized autonomous organization govern DeFi projects, causing regulatory uncertainty. So DeFi risk and regulation amid global adoption, decentralized finance have been seen rapid growth by 2025. It offers innovative financial, it provides new financial services without any tradition, without the help of any traditional banks. So however there are concern have risen about its misuse for illegal activities, especially terrorist financing. So this is an important call for urgent regulatory attention and risk management. About the DeFi growth and global adoption, by mid 2025, DeFi user reached 4.2 million wallets worldwide. So the market is increased to grow from $30.07 billion in 2024, $178.63 billion by 2029 at 43% annual rate. So India now know about the India. India ranks third in DeFi value according to 2024 Global Crypto Adoption Index. So DeFi platforms use blockchain technology to offer services such as saving, lending, remittance, insurance via smart contracts and decentralized applications. So how DeFi works? So DeFi operates without any bank help. A transaction happen peer-to-peer through smart contracts on blockchain methods. User access DeFi via digital wallets that often require minimum or no identification. It often require no identity verification. Multiple wallets can be created easily without providing personal information such as phone number or emails. So these anonymity improve fast access but also create different types of vulnerabilities. So there are many risks and vulnerabilities because of many information, personal information is not required. So the absence of traditional financial institution and regulators makes DeFi prone to criminal misuse. So small contracts are susceptible to different types of hacking, and decentralized autonomous organization govern DeFi projects, causing regulatory uncertainty and accountability issues. So illegal actors use multiple blockchains crypto mixer and different wallets to mask their activities. There are regulatory assessment and challenges. Several jurisdictions have evaluated DeFi risk. The U.S. Treasury State Services must follow anti-money laundering (AML) and counter-terror financing (CTF) laws. But notes participant ignore worsen risk, but notes participant ignorance worsen risk. So very important points. So US territory states DeFi service must follow with AML and CTF, but notes participant ignorance worsen different types of risk. European authorities saw money laundering and terror financing threats due to user anonymity. So United Kingdom's 2025 National Risk Assessment also flags DeFi vulnerabilities. India's position and future strategy. India faces unique risk given its terrorism threat. So despite DeFi's financial inclusion benefits, its borderless nature poses challenges beyond existing systems like JAM and UPI. Banning DeFi is impractical. Instead, India could adopt technology-driven risk-based mitigation strategies. So collaboration with industry stakeholders is important to prevent DeFi misuse. Prelims question is given, and it's your key features, risk, global regulation, sample prelims question. Mains, how to attempt introduction, significance of DeFi, risk, regulation, and way forward. And mains question is given. One liner recap, DeFi offers innovation and financial inclusion, but has different types of poses risk of fraud, volatility, money laundering, necessitating balanced global regulation. So DeFi risk are many small contract vulnerabilities, burst debilities, and absence of consumer protection. There is a spelling mistakes given, fraud and scam, price volatility, absence of consumer protection, regulation are required. These are the regulation which are required. So next news is a Gyan Bharatam portal. Gyan Bharatam portal is India ambitious vision, which is also it is also associated with technology news. Ambitious vision to preserve, democratize access to its manuscript. Gyan Bharati portal with manuscript heritage by digitizing over 1 crore rare text using modern technologies and creating a national digital repository. Gyan Bharatam is India's ambitious mission to preserve and democratize access to its manuscript heritage by digitizing over 1 crore rare texts using modern technologies and creating a nation digital repository. So, Gyan Bharatam portal launched by Pradhan Mantri in September 2025 in New Delhi, and this portal aims to digitize and preserve India's vast manuscript heritage. And India has nearly 1 crore manuscripts in around how many languages? 80 languages. So it helps to, it makes this user accessible globally and protect them from intellectual piracy. And it also helps to protect from intellectual piracy. Gyan Bharatam mission is this mission was announced during the 2025. It was announced during the 2025 budget session. So it focuses on cataloging and digitizing manuscripts across India and abroad. So the portal will serve as a central platform for public access. So project aims India's cultural and intellectual legacy and its global relevance. About India's manuscript heritage, India's hold the world's largest collection of manuscripts. This covered diverse field, different fields, philosophy, science, medicine, art, astronomy, architectures. So it's about the is this Bhagsali manuscript so early use of zero, a foundation of modern mathematics and computer science. Knowledge tradition, it shows India shows a knowledge system which rests on four pillars, and Indian knowledge system rests on preservation, innovation, addition, and adaptation. Oral tradition is given there. The mission encourages both a citizen and institution to participate in conserving this heritage. Role of institution and international cooperation in this movement. Institution like Asiatic Society of Kolkata, Saraswati Mahal Library, and Dharohar Udaipur play key roles. Over 10 lakh manuscripts have been digitized so far. Over 10 lakh manuscripts have been digitized so far. India has signed memorandum with university in Thailand and Vietnam to train a scholar in ancient languages like Pali, Lana, and Cham. Manuscripts from Mongolia have been digitalized and repatriated. India manuscripts preserved in Japan's Horyoji Monastery, which reflect India's historical cultural outreach. So these are the important points about the technology and youth engagement. So digitized manuscript will support global cultural and creative industries valued at $2.5 trillions. Young people from 70% of participants accelerating their exploration, increasing their exploration and dissemination of knowledge. Universities are encouraged to engage activity in the project. About cultural diplomacy, this initiative strengthened India's role as trusted custodian of heritage. Prelims question is given. Consider the following statement of Gyan Bharati. Just read and try to solve. Second is the recently launched Gyan Bharata mission portal is primarily related to digitization and preservation of manuscripts. Mains question is given. Critically analyze the significance of Gyan Bharati portal in cultural preservation, education, India's soft power diplomacy. Highlight the challenges in implementation and suggest measure to overcome them. Next news is world first koala vaccine. World's first koala vaccine. Look at Miss Koala is looking very attractive, enchanting. Koalas are native marsupials, which is known for tree-dwelling lifestyle and diet, and it eats eucalyptus leaves. It live on eucalyptus tree and eats eucalyptus leaves. It is a native marsupials known for tree dwelling lifestyle. It has paws with two opposing thumbs which help in their climbing, which is because it lives in eucalyptus tree. Koalas spend most of their time eating and sleeping in eucalyptus trees. Most of the time eating and sleeping in eucalyptus tree. So their population are decreasing, have declined sharply in recent decades due to multiple threats. So because of this, there is a need of koala vaccine to preserve koala. So the Australian veterinary regulatory recently approved the world first vaccine to protect koalas from which infection? Chlamydia infection. From chlamydia infection. Chlamydia, if in fact a human also. I'm going to explain the differences between chlamydia infection also. This breakthrough comes after over a decade of research by the University of Sunshine Coast in Queensland. So this research has been done by the University of Sunshine Coast in Queensland. It comes after over a decade of research by University of Sunshine Coast in Queensland. So the vaccine is a single dose treatment. Vaccine is single dose treatment given to koala that reduces disease symptoms and death rate in wild koala population by at least how many percent it decreases their mortality death rate 65%. It is now authorized for use in wildlife hospitals, veterinary clinics, and field conservation efforts. So chlamydia impact on koalas. Chlamydia causes different types of problem in koalas, urinary tract infection, infertility, blindness, and even death in koalas. So this disease severely affects breeding age animals and contributes to roughly half of all koala deaths in the wild. Infection rates in some colonies, especially in southeast Queensland and New South Wales, it reaches 50 to 70%. It increases in southwest Queensland and New South Wales to 70%. Antibiotic treatment disturb koalas digestion. If antibiotic is given to koalas, it disturb the digestion of eucalyptus leaves because it gets eucalyptus leaves, and which is only koalas eat only eucalyptus leaves, so which result in starvation if antibiotic is given to koalas after chlamydia infection. Vaccine development and effectiveness. The vaccine was developed under the guidance of professor, and name of the guidance is Peter Timms. Peter Timms. It is single dose vaccine which is required no booster dose. Trials showed reduction in disease symptom and death rate. Vaccine approval allow widespread use to protect this vulnerable koala population and slow the disease rapid speed. So world first koala vaccine given to koala habit because its habitat loss and bus flies and disease. Chlamydia is cause blindness, infertility, population decline, death. Koala vaccine, first of its kind vaccine developed. Conservation impact is it is required to protect endangered koala population. Conservation challenges is also there. Wildlife, urban expansion, and climate change have destroyed large areas of koala's habitat. So the Australian Koala Foundation, it's an important point. The Australian Koala Foundation and Queensland Conservation Council state that vaccination alone cannot save koalas without protecting their natural environment. So it is required to protect their natural environment also. Population estimates, the government-backed National Koala Monitoring Program suggests a population between 2,24,000 and 5,24,000, according to the government-backed National Koala Monitoring Program. Australian Koala Foundation estimate fewer than 1 lakh koalas mm, listed as endangered in Queensland, New South Wales, and Australian Capital Territory. Without intervention, koalas face possible, it is possibly extincted by 2050. So there is a care is required to protect this endangered species. Government support and funding is required. So the vaccine development received funding from federal and state governments, including 76 million Australian dollar help in saving koalas fund, Australian dollar saving koalas fund 76 million. Federal Environment Ministry moreover brought into light the importance of combating chlamydia to protect koalas' reproductive health. So this vaccine represents a key tool in ongoing conservation efforts. Prelims question is given. The first koala vaccine recently news is aimed at protecting against chlamydia. Against chlamydia. Against chlamydia. Means you have to write introduction, significance, challenges, way forward. One-liner recap. Australia launched the world's first koala vaccine to fight chlamydia, which help in protecting koalas from blindness, infertility, and population decline. Why it matters about the chlamydia? Chlamydia is a major threat to koala population, which contributes to wildlife's infertility, death of koala in some areas, pushing colonies toward local extinction. The vaccine offers a more sustainable, effective alternative to antibiotic treatments, which can disrupt a koala's delicate digestive system and lead to starvation. So it is an important step in conservation effort for this beloved Australian marsupial. Chlamydia, about chlamydia, we have to know about what is chlamydia. Chlamydia is an infectious infection which is caused by bacteria. Chlamydia is an infection which is caused by bacteria of the genus Chlamydia. So there are different types that it affects humans, animals, and even wildlife. So in humans, the common type of bacteria is Chlamydia trachomatis, which is a STD, sexually transmitted disease, which is sexually transmitted infection, chlamydia trachomatis in human. It spreads through unprotected sexual contact. Symptoms of it often has no symptoms, but can include painful urination, discharge, and pelvic pain. If untreated, may cause infertility to that human. Human become sterile, pelvic inflammatory disease, ectopic pregnancy means ectopic pregnancy not happen in uterus. It will go to the other organ. So ectopic pregnancy in females. So it treatments given the antibiotics, and antibiotics is azithromycin or doxycycline. In animals, it causes animals coilas, which for its coilas, world first vaccine is discovered. Koalas are affected by the name of the bacteria is Chlamydia pecorum. Clydium pecorum. For human, Chlamydia trachomatis. And for koalas, bacteria name is Chlamydia pecorum. So it causes blindness, inflammatory urinary tract infection, and lead to the death of koala. So that is why Australia developed world's first koala vaccine to fight chlamydia. In short, chlamydia bacterial infection that can affect both human and animals. Often it is serious if untreated, but preventable and curable. So chlamydia in human is a sexually transmitted disease caused by chlamydia trachomatis. Symptoms often are not visible commonly. Urinary problem, discharge, pelvic pain treated by antibiotics in koalas. It caused by Chlamydium pecorum, symptoms blindness, infertility, urinary tract infection, even lead to death, and vaccine is developed. So Chlamydia trachomatis in human, it is in human. So it's most common bacterial infection, which is a sexually transmitted infection, mandatory reportable infection as a public health measure. It affects urethra, cervix, eyes, oropharynx, rectum. So we will learn the next news in next series. Kindly watch the next series. Stay consistent. Make notes of every updates. Continuously revise all the